Hi guys, welcome and thank you for joining me on another mindset call for this week. So our topic is regarding healthy risk management, okay? Something that's extremely important that I want you to just take as much advice and tips as possible from this call. And also I'm going to just give you a bit of a background just to understand the connection between what our brain is doing at times of trading and upping our risk, because that's something that we seem to do quite often, okay? Especially when things are going really well, that risk goes up and then blows the whole proportion out of the window, and that's not what we want to be doing with our trade. So here I am, just going to give you some advice here and just give you a bit of momentum to get you going for your next trades. So first and foremost, you guys already know that trading is almost a very instant profitable machine, okay? It allows us to gain what could take us 2 weeks, 1 month, or even a day's work in a matter of minutes. And this I class as very dangerous because it allows our ego to increase, become explosive, and create decisions that aren't really based in our reality, but more of it into our fantasy. And the reason being is because our outcome is always the primary thing that we are considering. We are thinking about profit, we are thinking about how much we're going to make, and we are thinking about it happening right this minute, okay? And having that mindset is always going to set us up for failure because we are constantly thinking about the future and the outcome of what we want rather than the execution and the process of this journey, which is what we need to master in order to become consistent and successful in our trading, okay? So outweighing that, number one, the reality and the fantasy, we understand that the fantasy contains a lot of money, life-changing experiences, and we want it now. But realistically, we already know that this job, this work ethic is going to be high and it's going to take a lot of mindset skill. Remember, 80% mindset, 20% skill set, or in my case, 90% mindset and 10% skill set, as I always say, because it really, really does take a lot out of you mentally in a sense of patience and discipline. So we know that because it's an instant job and in the moment, if we are taking a few trades and they're going very well, our brain, our ego will start saying to us, well, if we can make consistent small profits, then we potentially can make big consistent profits and risk higher. So what we do is we end up upping our risk and we end up in this territory that we could blow all of those small, gorgeous trades that we took in one trade. And the reason why is because we've had a small risk over a period of time. You take one risk and completely demolish everything that you've worked for. And this is where the game gets tough because you start to realize that it really isn't that simple and anything can happen. Remember also, when you up your risk, your emotions will start taking place. If you guys are doing a funded account of 100K, remember what you will see in terms of a trade fluctuation is going to be completely different to someone who's just started off with their £500 account. Okay, it's going to be completely different. And so you have to be aware that mentally and emotionally there will be changes which can then create a different outcome in what you are doing. All right, so what happens at the start of our journey? As I said, we're just thinking about the future, about this fantasy world. And this is basically just called expectations. We are expecting ourselves to have a specific outcome because we have come here today to trade and to make money. And unfortunately, guys, that mindset will not take you down that route. All right. Expectation can lead us to failure. That is why we have to trade and go into anything, even in our personal lives, with no expectations. So then we can manage and handle healthily anything that gets thrown up to us within that space. Yeah, when we've got our expectation and things don't meet our expectations, our emotions come into play, and we could get volatile with our decision making and completely blow everything out of proportion. This is an industry where you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. There's no one behind you saying you can't do this, you need to do this, you shouldn't do too much of that, you shouldn't do a little bit of that, you should do more. There's no one telling you anything, only you and that brain of yours and that ego, right? So this means you can absolutely cultivate whatever you want to make that trading journey work for you, but it also means that you can create too much of something that can potentially make you in lots of losses and just set you up again for unsuccessful trading. And that is the reality of this journey, is that we have to live in this present moment and understand that it's all about this process that we're building rather than the outcome. Okay, we're not used to this, guys. Remember, we're so not used to this type of industry and making money. You know, we're used to having rules. We're used to people telling us what to do. We're used to people telling us when to come into work, when to leave work, when to have our break, when to eat, when to have our cigarette break. You know, these are all rules that have been infused in us for the get-go when we first started working, and in our personal lives with everything. There's always been rules and regulations. And this is completely different. This is all being created by you. You have a step-by-step of education, learning phases, practicing, and then it's just down to you, whatever you want to do. So yes, it's a very dangerous place to be in, because at that moment is when you need to start mastering that mind of yours to understand where you want to be with setting your own rules and your own structure. If we are setting up our own rules, if we are in that motion of, in that dangerous territory, shall I say, we know that anything is possible, but our brain is still fused on that expectation in the future that we are going to make profit and we're going to make a lot of it. Now, in that moment, what we start to realize, well, what we're going to be realizing is that we are not actually taking into consideration the present moment. So what includes in this present moment as we trade? It's our analysis, it's the way that we execute, it's our patience, it's our choice making. Are we following our rules? Have we entered at the right place at the right price? Did we rush it? Did we miss it? Did we miss that entry? We need to take into consideration those factors, because those are the factors that are going to give you consistent executions. So your trading journey at the start towards the future, but predominantly at the start, is to be practicing the execution rather than thinking about the expectation and the outcome. You want to be mastering how you set yourself up for a trade and practice this over and over again, because essentially what you're doing is programming a new habit into your body. Okay, so part of that, we need to address the healthy risk management and not be focused on profits only. We want to be focusing on how we organize ourselves and make that trade happen. And that is the key to becoming successful. It's got nothing to do with how much you've made. It's got nothing to do with if you've closed in a break even, and it's got nothing to do with losses. It's totally down to your own decision making and knowing who is in charge. Is it your ego that's blowing you up, making you think you need to make those huge profits? Or is it your reality in this present moment that's going to keep you steady and pacing yourself? So take that into consideration, guys. It happens with all of us, okay? If you find that you're listening to this, you're taking down those notes, you're absorbing the information, and the next trade you do, you set yourself up to high risk, it's normal. It happens to the best of us. And the only way we can change that is to become aware of that present moment, become aware of those old habits, zip them out, and incorporate new habits. The hard part here is keeping up with it, okay? Because we start seeing, oh, look, it's going really well. We're doing extremely well. I've made loads of profits. I've done loads of trades recently. I understand the game a little bit more. And then you decide you're going to up the risk because you're doing so well. And what can potentially happen when you do that? If you up your risk too much, you potentially could lose all of the profits that you've made within 10 trades. Yeah. So you have to outweigh and see the comparison of the potentials that can happen when you up that risk. And just remember that consistency on a long-term basis is going to get you to the amount that you want, not the gambling brain of the ego that's telling you that you need to make that money straight away. Okay. One thing also to remember and to acknowledge in your early start as well is that sometimes it might be that we spend a lot of time behind the computer, behind our devices and studying, and we might only make £2. So how do we work with something like this? So in our normal reality, we are known to work hard and make money. Okay, some of us get paid at the end of the day, after every service, after a week, or even after a month. Okay, so we already have a structure based around finance in our normal day-to-day, where trading is completely different. So acknowledging that and becoming comfortable with the fact that trading is not the same is essential. You might be hours behind the desk looking at charts and trying to find out that perfect setup, and then you get a profitable trade that only gives you £50, $50, whatever it is. And that's fine, because it's not about how much you make, okay? It's always about the execution and how you've set up for that trade to actually run. So keep practicing how to let go of expectations for the future. Remember, the future has not happened yet. It means it doesn't exist. So if you're basing your trades off an expectation that is in the future that hasn't happened yet, what does that say about how you've set up the trade? It means it's not worth anything because it hasn't existed. It does not exist. Okay. So how to manage a tempting mind? Yeah, because our minds are tempted. We know that we want to make money out there in the world. That, the industry, social media makes it seem like this industry is easy and easy to make money quick, but it's not. All right. People have to work hard. We have to hustle hard. We have to make sure our thinking cap is on. Remember, 80% mindset, 20% skill set, or in my life, 99% mindset, 1% skill set. Okay. So you need to start journaling. Remember, Diane is here to help you and make sure that you are setting plans, goals, and targets every day, not just for how much you make, not just for the amount of trades that you do, but also the type of person you are becoming as a trader. So you want to make sure that you're asking questions. For example, am I observing everything around how a trade goes? What did I do in this moment that made that trade become profitable? Did I wait long enough? Did I rush into things? How many trades did I take? How many trades did I take from this pair? How many trades did I do in a whole week? And how does it compare to the week before in the amount of trades that I took then? You need to be asking loads of questions to start mapping out what is actually working consistently on a long-term basis and what is not, okay? So when you start to program yourself and acknowledge this basic information, which is actually the major information, you then will start having an interest. Your brain will naturally gain an interest in what is working, and you'll think, oh, okay, so I've only done 4 trades, but because I did them at this specific hour, it got me to the profits that I wanted, or the profits near to what I wanted, rather than, oh, look, that's a huge move over there, I'm just going to go for it because it looks like the momentum is going really fast. You have to ask yourself, which mindset is actually profiting you? Is it that tempting mind that's getting you to do things at the last minute, at a random moment, without any backup plan? Or is it the mindset that is creating journals in order to find those patterns, those habits that are actually working for you. You want to be at that level that you are writing things down and that you are acknowledging what is working and what isn't. Remember that your ego is playing a huge role here, and what we want to do is establish who is the reality version of you and who is the ego version. The ego will always want you to do all the possible worst things, and because you have that space to do it, because no one is telling you what to do, it's going to be a lot more dangerous for you. So you want to be acknowledging who is in charge here. Is it the ego, that mind that's, telling you to be out of control and just go and plunge straight into trades without having that backup plan? Or is it that person who's going to play safe, who's going to play minimal, and is going to be doing this on a constant basis every single day, practicing those small steps, because those small steps will give you the bigger return. They always do. And also breathe, okay? If you find yourself really thinking and really analyzing and in a trade and you're in the waiting game, you'll notice that a lot of our breathing will become a lot shallower and start suppressing into the upper part of our body. Now, this can also cause a lot of physicality of us to start not functioning as well enough. So if we're now breathing just from this upper body, our breathing gets shallower. Also, anything around our mouth, we might start getting dehydrated. Our area of our throat starts to shut down. So we're really not getting the oxygen that we need to stay clear and to have that clarity. Also, when we're in that state, it's classed as a stress mechanism. And so when we are in stress, our body stops other organs from doing the job that they're doing throughout the day. So, for example, digestive system, digesting the food, it reduces the work that it's doing in order to provide more adrenaline into that area of stress. So if that is then getting built up every single day, then you are just going to end up in a place where you're trading from that stress level, and you're not really trading from the realistic point of view of who you are and who you want to be. And you'll be trading from an emotional point, which is exactly where we don't want to be. Yeah, so make sure that breathing is part of your rules and that you practice this every day before you start a trade. Just take some really nice deep breaths and practice breathing, flowing through the breath whilst the trade is on. Lastly, you might have heard of this before in the group, but I'm just going to reiterate it. If you have a risk for the day, which might be 1% of your balance, or let's say 0.5% of your balance. So if your balance is 100K, and instead of doing a 1% loss throughout the day, you're going to do $500, so half. What you could do, rather than taking one trade with the risk that could end up in a 500 loss, you could take 5 trades that have a risk of $100 or pounds per trade. Okay, so what you're essentially doing is breaking down your risk, so then you have more opportunity to trade throughout the day if you decide that that's what you want to do. Now, if you took one trade and your loss was at 500, but you ended up in profit of, let's say, 250, if you decide to take another trade, rather than thinking, okay, I haven't lost 500 today, so I'm going to do another trade that gives me the maximum of a 500 loss, what you want to do is acknowledge that you've profited 250, and you want to make sure that if you do end up in a loss in the next trade, that you still end up with profit from what you've made earlier in your previous trade. So having said that, now what you want to do is potentially half that amount that you've made and put that half as your loss. So for example, what would that be? Get my so we've got 125. That could be your risk for that particular trade. Okay, so you know that regardless if that trade ends up in a loss, you will end up in that day with a profit of 125 because you made that profit earlier. That's how you want to manage your risk healthy. let's say, for example, that you did take that second trade and it didn't end up in a loss, it ended up in profit, and you gained another 100. So now you've got 350 profit for the day. You could just end it there. It's totally fine. You don't need to make any more. Just because you've been consistent, that doesn't mean you're going to be having another profit again, okay? Because now your emotions are in play. You're all over the place. Wow, I've just done 2 amazing trades. Both of them gone into profit and gaining a lot of money from both of them. Shut that computer, walk away, go and enjoy your day. Congratulate yourself that the fact that in 2 trades, you made more money than you possibly have done in 1 or 2 days of work. That's huge. And that's nothing to play with. That's something to celebrate. Okay, take time, celebrate it, relax, close that laptop, your device. And if you really need to, you can also uninstall the apps. I've had to do that a few times. Uninstall that app so then you don't have that temptation to go back in and start working back on your trades the following day. All right. So take that into consideration, make up that plan, work with Diane because she'll help you on this. But remember that at every single step that you take in this trading journey, it is your mind that you need to stay in control of. Make sure that you're doing minimal steps to get to that long-term goal rather than massive instant actions that could end up in a gambling situation that you don't want to be in, because that emotional turmoil is what is going to set you up for unsuccessful trading. And we don't want to be there. We want to be at successful trading. We want to be part of the 1%. All right, guys, I'll leave it there for today. If you have any questions, want to work through this healthy risk management from your mindset, I'm here to help. Send me a DM or pop a message in the chat and we will speak soon. Thank you, guys.